Hey folks, it must be 12 o'clock. Here we are, ChakraTalk Live, every day at noon. I'm Piper. I run a group called ChakraTalk on Facebook, and I run a business in Salem, Oregon called Marinsky's Magic, all about connecting you to the cosmos. Today we're going to jump right in. We're going to be talking today about the throat chakra. The throat chakra, right here in your throat, the center of your honesty and integrity. It's a big deal. I told you yesterday in talking about the heart chakra being an intake valve that the throat chakra is your output valve. Well, there's ways to use that efficiently and there's ways to use it not so efficiently. While it's one of the easiest chakras to charge and keep healthy, it's also one of the ones most often allowed to be unhealthy and to kind of adjust itself for other people's comfort, we'll say. We'll start with that. The purpose of the throat chakra is your self-expression of this human thing joining the whole of the energy. We've talked about the big energy and the little filtered energy. So the throat chakra allows this particular Piper little filtered energy to express itself. If you're just joining us, we're going to be talking throat chakra today. Throat chakra is all about being true to yourself, true to the place, true to what's going on here. Very easy to put that aside and adapt it to other people's comfort and it not be very healthy for you. So the natural expression from your throat chakra is this super easy. There's the spiral right there, coming in, going out, coming in, going out. That energy that's healthy below, remember we've talked about getting this healthy energy moving up through the body, up into the heart chakra, coming in. And the natural expression of that is to move right on up and out through the mouth, out through the throat, out into the cosmos again. There's of course some connection with the crown and the thinking, and like I've told you before, the chakras don't any of them do anything all by themselves. It's a system. It all works together. But as we try to discuss one at a time, today we'll focus on the throat, and I'll try to keep it focused on that. The way to charge and keep your throat chakra in perfect health is with 100% honesty and integrity. And that sounds a lot easier than it is, because the first person you have to be honest with is yourself. And therein lies the challenge. A great many people on the planet have sworn, I do not tell lies. And they don't. They're completely honest. I've heard it called honest to a fault. But are they honest with themselves? By not telling someone else a lie, does that always protect your own integrity? Is your integrity compromised to protect someone else's feelings, someone else's expectation? And I'll give you an example of a malfunction very quickly that you'll all recognize. We've all experienced it probably in ourselves. If not in ourselves, we've all seen this happen to somebody. In a regular population, you'd call this a temper tantrum. In an autistic population, they call this a meltdown. Whatever's blowing out the throat chakra has built up a lot of pressure. Okay, so you got all this stuff churning down here. Okay, you very seldom ever see anyone have a screaming temper tantrum explosion about joy. No one's usually on the floor kicking their feet because they're just so damn happy. Okay, so that tells you that we're not dealing with chakras that are processing joy. We're dealing with something else. Right away, that gives you a clue. Well, remember I talked to you about the lower chakras. If they're not in good health, they suck that energy down. And that energy goes in there, and it's like dripping acid, a hole into your soul. And eventually, that hole in your soul will make your physical body sick. In my case, it came up with this cancer everywhere. And you can let all that go, and you can heal yourself, but you have to understand all the processes that went into it occurring. Okay? So if your throat chakra is basically being, we're going to say, pinched off, this will check for your age. If any of you are old enough to remember, like me, when I was a little girl, I watched a show called All in the Family, and Archie Bunker, and he had a wife named Edith, and he was always telling her, stifle, Edith, stifle. In other words, he didn't allow her to speak. And it was a comedy show, and it was a ha-ha, it was funny. But when you think about it, to not allow another person to express themselves, what right does any of us have to do that? And for God's sakes, what gives any of us the idea that anyone else has the right to do that to us? Well, society is what gives us that idea. From the time we're old enough to talk, as soon as we start learning words, we start learning which words people want to hear and which ones they don't. You know, you see the little 2-year-old who stomps their foot and says, damn it, because they see daddy stomp his foot and say, damn it. But you tell the 2-year-old, oh, don't do that. That's a naughty word. Let's use a nice word. Let's say, oh, fudge. Okay? You're altering that child's normal expression. Well, society don't like people to express themselves. So society very much likes people to express society. Do you see? As long as I'm expressing things that everybody around me likes and feels comfortable with, then I'm part of that group. I'm part of that wonderful society that I live in. Well, for most of my life, and especially the last 5 years or so, I don't fit in that society. I talk about things like this, and people go, she's kind of weird. And sometimes when I'm talking about my contact with the Arcturians, who are to you an alien species, to me it's home, they say, well, she's really weird. Now, that's really weird. We're not going to go there. A little bit weird. Talking to dead people might be okay, but talking to aliens, that's just too far out. This is just bullshit. Well, think whatever you want of it. I don't care. I could not care any less if I tried. But if by my honest expression of what I'm actually living and experiencing here, I can help somebody, even one person, go for it. I'm happy to do it. I don't need to fit inside society's box. Hell, I was grown before I knew there was a box, and I'd never been in it. To this day, I don't fit in anybody's box. We just very recently had a drum circle here, and it was eye-opening to me when someone who came to the drum circle, and now I would consider a friend, and she's going to come back, and she said, is this Wiccan or Native American? And it had never even crossed my mind. I was doing it as an honor to Black Elk, which is a dear friend and someone that I work for and with in the Ascended Master realm. And so that was very Native American. At the same time, we had people bringing in djembe drums, which are African. And apparently when there's a Wiccan circle, it has a lot to do with the belly dance and a whole different type of a circle. Well, I didn't know any of that because I don't have that kind of thinking. I don't ever say, does this fit here? I say, here it is. I'm here in the middle of it. Y'all come in with me if you want to. Because of that, I attract some really interesting friends. And not all of my friends are what you'd call regular or normal. And because of the internet, God, the internet's the most amazing thing. I can share my truth all over the world. And I do. This is what this is. Everybody that has access to Facebook can watch me being true to me and not fitting in a box. If it helps somebody, that's wonderful. If it doesn't help anybody, it's not going to hurt anybody. I get to be me. Take it or leave it. You know? Each and every one of you has that option. But you have absolutely been schooled out of it. The absolute moment we begin expressing ourselves, we get trained as to what is appropriate and what is not. Okay? For some folks, self-expression can happen in different ways than just talking. I have a lot of interest and a lot of time involved and a lot of investigation and study and a lot of direct experience in living with autistic people. And autistic people express themselves sometimes even really differently than we do. And yet they're expected to fit in a box too. I'm going to share a secret with you. Most of us seem like Myrtle the turtle walking around to these autistic folks because they're processing things at least 3 times as fast as we are. And I wrote a book showing you the energetics of that. If you'd like to read the book, it's called Autism. And it's the autism spectrum, if you turn it up on its side, follows right up the chakra tree, just like everything else. They have all the same chakras we do. They just have excessively fast processing and in most cases, very high intelligence. Well, If that doesn't make you not fit in a world that is sludging along slow and methodical like a bunch of sheep, what else is going to make you stand out more? The trick to this is no matter who you are, you can only be yourself. You can try to suit other people, and you'll find it doesn't work. You can even convince yourself so thoroughly that it's important what those other people think that you will, excuse me, that you will try to give up on what feels like you should do. What feels like you should do for yourself, you'll try to give that up and do what feels like you should do for them. Well, that's all thoughts about thought stuff, guys. Anything that you're feeling like you should do, that's thoughts about thoughts. There is no should. Me and Joe Kidd, we say, don't should on me. We don't use that word in this house. If it comes up, it's so rare that one of us will go, oh, look what you said. No, we don't use that. There's no shoulds here, because should indicates I should do something. The reality is you're not doing anything. You are being human, and you are responding to things happening around you spontaneously. My hero, who doesn't know me from anyone in the world, Lisa Carnes, says there are spontaneous occurrences and you get to react to them. And man, she nailed it. She's got it. If you ever want to if you want me to look really normal and regular, go listen to Lisa Carnes. She is like this genius lady who understands what's going on here with no attachment to it whatsoever. None. And the way she explains it is magnificent, and she'll just sit with you and look at you and talk to you. So if I spend some time sitting here quiet, that's because she's my role model. Okay. I wrote a book called Maximizing Joy, about how to be joyful as a human. One of the ultimate ways to be joyful as a human is to quit comparing yourself to other people. As long as you compare yourself to anyone other than yourself, then there's always going to be something you're striving for. I want to be thinner like her. I want to have bigger butt like her. I want to be able to dance like him. I'd love to be able to dive like that guy. Well, you're not that guy. You're this guy. Joe loves to dance. He's like a ballroom dancer. He knows how to dance. I do not know how to dance. And we've established that pretty quickly in our relationship that that's probably not going to work for us. Okay? That's because that's not who I am. He can go out and dance with someone else if he really has the urge to dance. I'll go and watch. I'd love that. But I can't dance because I'm stumbling around like I've got a broken foot and 3 extra wheels. It just doesn't work for me. Now I can do the twist. We can get down and do some twisting. But this ballroom dancing stuff is just a little more graceful than I was given. And I'm completely okay with that because that's not who I am. You might not be able to twist like I do. Okay? I'm going to read you a little excerpt out of the ChakraTalk workbook. I'll remind you all, ChakraTalk, Workbook for Life. We're still making our way through part 1. If you have any questions related to the workbook, I want you popped right to the top. That's the priority purpose of this show. So far, I've been doing this for 5 days and haven't had a single question. So we'll just keep talking. Anyway, and because you watch it on here and you don't have the workbook, you don't get homework. So maybe you're the smart ones. Okay. Throat chakra. Your throat chakra is the energy center of self-expression. This self. It is the focal point of your honesty and integrity. We said that. It is your voice to the wholeness of the energy that allows for individual expression. Now we get into this situation of individuality. We really don't have any. There's duality. There's us being and there's the one watching. But we feel like we have individual lives. And the reason for that is because we have individual crown chakras. And we're going to get to that here in a day or so, maybe today, who knows? We're just running along as we go. So your expression of a Piper or a Joe or a Kooky for that matter is your own expression. to try to express anything other than what truly comes through there, that's like putting a filter on a filter. Or in some people's cases, it's like putting layers of filters on this, which is already a filter. And they're never allowed to have the true energy come through and express itself. Okay, let's read something here. I wrote this and I like this story, so I read it a lot. It's called Oranges and Volkswagens. Comparing yourself to anyone else is like trying to compare oranges and Volkswagens to see which one is better. Well, how ridiculous. Better at what? Better at being a fruit? Orange wins, hand down. Does that mean that Volkswagen is a loser? No, it means that a car is not an orange. It means a Piper is not a Joe. It means while you are here being human, you can't compare you to anyone else. And to do so, you're basically throwing your energy away. You get X amount of energy to express yourself. Okay? You have all this energy coming in. You have a certain amount through this physical vehicle that gets to go out and say, this is me. I'm a Piper. This is what a Piper looks like. This is what a Piper says. Okay? If I go through that and I say, I'm a Piper, but I'm not very confident, and I'll just sit over here and be quiet. And I used to do that. That's not Piper. That's some scared little thing holding Piper back. You see? When I was a registered nurse, I put on my nurse hat. It was, my name is Piper. I'll be your nurse today. These are your instructions. And I expected them to follow them, and they did. Whether that was my CNAs or my patients, I was forceful. I was a very good nurse. I don't like what I was doing back then, but I was real good at it. But that's not me. That was a career. That was a hat I put on to go to work. We put on a lot of hats. People don't have any issue thinking I put on my nurse hat. I put on my mom hat. I put on my sister hat. I put on my Girl Scout leader hat. Whatever your hats are. But do you realize each hat you put on is still being expressed through the same chakra right here? Now, if you can express yourself as 10 different people, 10 different roles, and you can do it all honestly, wow, go for it. But if stepping into these different roles causes you to cease your true expression and put on the expression that's expected of you, well, that's Edith being stifled. That's being told what you have to say is not important enough to say. Now that gets tricky too. Who's it important to? What I have to say may seem very, very important to some of you, and it may seem very, very important to me, and it may not seem important at all to some of you. But if it doesn't seem important to me, then it's a waste of my energy to express it. I don't have excess energy that I just want to throw around. I have the amount of energy that it takes to run this body and this life and to do the work I do out of body quite frequently. And everything is just seeming to swirl in a nice, perfect, balanced pattern. I spend most of my time in the house, behind closed doors, very little interaction with the public face-to-face. The public I do interact with comes here to my house. We have 15 or 20 people that meet here regularly. They come here to be themselves. They come here knowing that when they walk in the front door, they can take all their hats off and lay them at the door with their shoes. And they can come in and be exactly who they are. One of my dearest friends in the entire world, and I won't call out by name, but you may recognize, he lives his life very much as a samurai. And I'm going to tell you a secret. He does this working at Fred Meyer. He works at Fred Meyer's, and he gives people food, and he observes, and he watches, and the wisdom that comes out of his mouth, and he's decades younger than I am, a couple of decades younger. But he lives that way because it's true to him. He's not putting on a show for anybody. He is a martial arts expert and an Aikido master, and he has all sorts of training for that. But do you see, he has all the training because the training came natural to him, and now he lives that. If you can imagine just this peaceful being walking through a crowd, and imagine, the old Kung Fu masters. Well, this guy lives this way, and he works at Fred Meyer's. He absolutely honors the true expression of himself, with no doubt. And he'll tell you right up, there isn't much that's important to me. That's honesty. People take that the wrong way. People think, well, there's not much that's important to me means you don't give a shit. No, there's not much that I'm attached to. There's not much that's binding me to this world. I'm living my true expression because I don't have to feed all these attachments, all these important things. Hi, guys. I see all my friends are back. I love you all. Remember, pink energy. I'll share something I'm doing with you all now that there's a few of you gathered here. There's this thing. I'm going to go ahead and start a YouTube place where I can put all these. I'm being strongly encouraged to go to YouTube, but I'm going to do them primarily from Facebook first and then put them on YouTube. And I'll tell you why. It's easier with the copyright issues. YouTube's real stingy about their copyrights, and Facebook, not so much. So, but each day before I put this show on, about 5 minutes or less before the show, I'm posting a song on ChakraTalk. A song that's important to me and that might have something to express to you about what we're going to talk about that day. I purposefully do not include them in this show because then I have issues moving them back and forth between Facebook and YouTube. So I just have to keep the video clear just as a video. But if you want to hear the music that I consider goes with this, tune in 5 minutes early and listen to the song I post each day right before this comes on. Today, the song I posted is Natalie Merchant, and the song is Wonder. Have you ever listened to that song and watched the video? It's absolutely beautiful. She has gathered 10 or 15 women from all over the world with all sorts of bodies and abilities and deformities and whatever you want to call it, whatever shape and thing you call it deformity. I have this new idea about deformities, that they're gifts. And that'll come a little bit later as we're talking. But this song is just the most magnificent song. I encourage you all to go take a look and listen to it. And while you're listening to it, you sit there and feel the wonder that you are. You, just exactly the way you are. That's the idea of being a wonder. And if that wonder that you are doesn't have you fitting too well in a box in society, I'm here to tell you, you can live outside that box. Yeah. In fact, I don't know where they keep that box. I think I saw it pass by once. It's just not necessary. People who care about you and love you for who you are, really, who you really are, they'll just hang around. They'll just watch you change and say, wow, that person's being real. And people who loved you and cared for you for what they thought you should be, they kind of disappear. It's okay. My shirt here today says Badlands, and that brings back a magnificent memory. We just went this past summer and spent some time in South Dakota in the Badlands National Park and different things we did down there. But I was thinking of that Badlands. If you go there and if you've never seen it, it's some of the most rugged, dangerous looking land you've ever seen. It's spiky rocks and it's cliffs and it's tremendous wind. And I'm thinking, that's Mother expressing her true self when she's badass. See, you can express yourself in different ways at different times, but be true to yourself. I recently went through soul reintegration with multiple fractures, what some of you might recognize as multiple personality disorder. I got them all gathered up and I got them all saved and all reintegrated, and it's a beautiful thing. But in allowing that to be, because I was fractured at young ages, 10 and 15 years old, those 10 and 15-year-old parts of me that are now alive and well again, They have ideas of their own about how things should be sometimes. And I don't feel like, as the person who currently drives this body, that I have any right to neglect that from them. I have a saying I say all the time because I play a lot. Everyone deserves a happy childhood. I think I'll have mine now. You can too. A happy childhood is something that you can't really have in childhood unless things are just hunky-dory, because you haven't been taught that you're self-sufficient. You believe all the things you're told that you can't do. You believe it's important that you speak and walk and talk and function just the way you're told, so the adults around you are happy and satisfied. Had I been around other adults growing up as a youngster, I might have come out very different. But I had to fight to even have them know I was there. There was just so much time they were lost in drugs, and I literally got locked outside one night and spent the night outside because I couldn't get in the house. They didn't even know. So my goals became somewhat being self-expressive without making a fuss, if you can imagine. They had to know I was there. Once in a while, I'd say, there's no food in the fridge. So I had to say something. But at that time, I had no idea how to be who I was. If I had had that kind of knowledge, I would have walked away and just turned myself into somebody else. Anybody went to a police station, anything, and said, I'm here, I need help. But I didn't know to do that. So I just went with it day by day by day. Tried not to be noticed, but be noticed enough not to be forgotten. Well, I don't do that now. My throat is wide open. About a year ago, maybe a year ago or so, a lady who used to have some association with gave me a card reading on a show just like this. And that card reading said, you're hiding behind your observations. The card that she pulled was the throat chakra, the one we're talking about today. And the reading I got from it was, you're hiding behind your observations. That was right before I published my first book about the Arcturians. She was right. I was hiding. I had all this information piling up. Valid, important information. And I was sitting on it because I had some idea how it might be received. People already have established that I'm not regular and that I'm crazy, and now I've quit my career and I live this hermit Buddhism monk life, and I just don't fit into anybody's pattern of anything. And I'm going to throw into the mix of that Arcturians, aliens to you. They're not actually alien to me. They're my ancestors, but that's a long story, and there's a lot of books to read between your root chakra and my Arcturians. You people joining in, love and light, I love you, namaste. I can't begin to express how important you people are to me. And you're important to me because I choose to have you be important to me. It's a very true expression of myself to care deeply about other people. In the Buddhist tradition, there's something called a bodhisattva, and there's something called a bodhicitta. And I, for a long time, thought that I was functioning under the guise of a bodhisattva, which is someone who waits in the non-physical to make sure everybody gets home. A bodhicitta does that while they're here on the planet, dragging everybody home with them. Every sentient being, which includes everything you see around you. As I express myself quite honestly, and with, I try to be completely honest to myself first before I say anything, I find that a lot of people don't mind hearing the truth of what I have to say. And even people who I would have expected a different response from have followed me and kind of taken into footsteps behind me and saying, we're interested, we're watching this. Part of that's because they've seen the incredible change in my life in 4 years' time. It looks like I fixed my lighting problems. I don't look like a draconian shapeshifter today. So that's a good thing. I watched yesterday's movie and it kind of freaked me out. Kind of looked like it wasn't me most of the time, but it was. When I do work with the workbook and folks come around to this part of the throat chakra, I give them an assignment. I give them a question, and I'm going to ask this question to each one of you today and let you have some time to ponder it. Rather than me yakking on, my throat chakra's fine, I can talk all day, but rather than do that, I'm going to give you some homework if you choose to do it. Your mission, should you decide to accept. Write down 5 things that you do that are an expression of who you are. And those 5 things, they're going to be easily recognized. One of the things I do a lot is wear tie-dye. And I do tie-dye, and I make tie-dye, love it. That's an expression of me. If other people were writing the list, they'd probably be in the top 3. Okay, make a list of 5 things that you do that are a true expression to the world, to the rest of the energy of who you are. It's easy. It's easily done. Now, on that same piece of paper, make a list of 5 things that you hide from the world. Okay? Make a list of 5 things that you hide, blatantly hide from the world. There's no judgment here. There's no right or wrong. This is, can you be honest with yourself? I'm not inviting you to come back and share with me, but you certainly can. I'm not inviting you to share it with anyone. You can put it in the fireplace tonight and be done with it. But can you be honest with yourself? You can't be honest with the whole of the energy until you get an honest knowledge of what's happening here. And what's happening here, whatever it is going to be expressed through your throat chakra. That is your expression valve. And we've already talked about what happens if it's not expressed regularly and there's any negativity to it and it builds up pressure, boom, then you get these explosions. And that's no fun for anybody. The person who has that explosion, sometimes afterwards, after they've kind of gotten over the trauma of it, they're going, oh, I can breathe, I feel better. Well, that's because all that pressure isn't in there. If you've ever had a big old zit on your face and it finally busts, I mean, even though it's gross, you're like, oh, thank God. Well, it's kind of the same thing. You've got a big zit of negativity building up down here. Eventually, it's going to blow. And it's going to blow right out your mouth and whoever's standing in front of you. What happens a lot of times, and you see this far too often, is it blows on somebody that has nothing to do with the negativity that built up inside. You ever seen that? Dad goes to work every day and he works this terribly stressful job, whatever it might be that he chooses to be stressed about. And he's a perfect servant out there in the public eye, and it builds and it builds and it builds and it builds. And he comes home one day and the kid forgot to take out the trash, and he comes out and waylays this kid and comes unglued on a kid because they forgot to take out the garbage. Fucking cares. But do you see? The explosion happened not downtown where it was created. At the job, the explosion was brought home. The explosion puked out on a child that forgot to take the garbage out. So what? Kid didn't have anything to do with all that negative pressure. The garbage is not a big deal. It was the last straw. It was the last push of pressure before the valve let go. The valve will let go eventually. Some people can hold it and hold it and hold it and hold it. I hear people who say, I haven't cried in 30 years. And as soon as I hear that, I'm always like, ugh, I might stand back over here a bit. Crying is a normal expression of yourself at times. I say, my gratitude builds up and runs out my eyes. Well, pain can do that too. Grief, sorrow, let it build up. Let it run out your eyes. Let it build up and out, up and out, up and out. Not up and down, up and down, up and down. Stifle, Edith. And then, this is one of the hardest things to get through to people, is you don't have to please anybody else. There's really no one else here. You're here on a solitary journey. You get through it. You get through it honestly, or you get through it being told you're a lousy orange because you're a Volkswagen. Yeah, it just don't make any sense to me. You get one set of DNA. It's one pattern. You get to respond to things that are happening around you. Your response to things happening around you creates the next thing you get to respond to. That's how this works. Just like this. We feed it, it feeds us. We feed it, it feeds us. We're gonna be getting up into this as we reach up into the Akashic record here in just a few days. We're headed that way. And then you're going to become understanding of the great, great importance of joy, joy, joy going up and nothing else. Because whatever's going up, we're all living with it. Let me take a quick look. I don't see anybody asking questions. I'm so happy to have you all here. Somebody says, sure enough, their partner don't need all of it coming out on them. So we do that for each other as partners. Joe and I do that too. If I'm in a crappy mood and I need to vent, he lets me vent. And we've learned enough with each other in our short relationship. We've only been together 5 years. And in our short 5 years time, we've learned that we can't both be crazy at the same time. If one of us is having a shitty day, the other one is there for support and holding space and saying, I'll take care of the life business going on here, whatever you need. This is about we support each other. It's not as easy to do that with your children. They're not as cooperative. But when you get to be adults, you can work this out. 100% honesty and integrity is what we entered this relationship with, and we've never faltered from it for one day. And sometimes it's not as pleasant as it could be, but it's honest. It's not as pleasant as it could be because life is not always pleasant, and we're truthful about what's in front of us. We're truthful about things we've been through. We've had very different lives getting from where we came to here. And when we got together 5 years ago, between the two of us, we'd been married 85 years. So we knew how to do that. We're not doing that. We're doing something different. We have an absolute honest relationship. We walk side by side as friends. The dearest friend in the world, but we're friends. My shirt reminds me, speaking of Mother expressing herself, next Wednesday and Thursday, I'll have a treat for you. We're going to be doing ChakraTalk live from Mother Pacific. It's Joe's birthday. So we'll be spending some time over there in that powerful energy, and I'll make sure she gets on camera for you. If there's anybody out there that's never met Mother Pacific, I'll be glad to introduce you. She's a powerful lady. She's about 50 miles from us. It's interesting whenever we're going to the coast, once we turn west and head that way, usually within about, and there's a mountain range between us and her, the coast range. It's not a real big one where we live, but there is a mountain range. But even before I get to the mountain range, I'll hear Mother say, I know you're coming. Oh, and it's a beautiful thing. You can't swim in the Oregon Ocean. You'd freeze your needles off. But you can walk in it, or you can stand in it. Sometimes the wind threatens to blow your hair off, and that wind, oh man, that's good power. Sister Wind is a great friend of mine. I always feel so much cleaner after I've been blown by the wind. Yeah. Anyway, next Wednesday and Thursday, that'll be a treat. We'll be doing this from the coast. I'm going to do it every day, no matter where I am. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, guys. Like I say, when something's done, it's done. I'm finished for today. I love you all. That is an absolute true expression of myself. I just love people. Have a good day, guys. Bye.